Bill Self versus Johnny Dawkins. I mean, if that doesn't make you get up out your seat, I really don't know what will. In all seriousness, though, UCF coming off their first round victory in pretty convincing fashion over Utah. Obviously, Utah is Utah, so this is going to be a step up in competition as they take on the Kansas Jayhawks. And let's start here, Subi, because I need to get a temperature check on the Kansas Jayhawks. If you just paid attention to the fan base and the chatter and everything going on, you would think that this team is 8-24 on the year. You would think that they have zero chance at the NCAA tournament. You would think that players are fighting. You would think that the sky is falling. Have they been the normal Kansas this year? No. They find themselves at 20-11. They picked up a big win at home against your Arizona Wildcats in the last game to go to 11-9 in Big Ten play. So I guess I'll start here, Subi, before we get into like matchup stuff. Where are you at with this Kansas Jayhawks team? Because I think people are on two different sides sometimes.
I don't know. Can I be somewhere in the middle? Like I don't think that they're a dangerous team to make a run in the NCAA tournament. I also don't think that they're awful, but we got to remember this is Kansas. These are Kansas standards, and I actually don't mind Kansas fans being upset. I'm going to be, by the way, let me be 100% unequivocally clear. Uh, I do mind, no, I'm being serious here. Like, I do mind all the nonsense that Zeke Mayo's gotten. And
Yeah.
like, that is terrible. Like, do not do that nonsense. Like, awful, awful stuff. But to be disappointed in this team, a team that was ranked super high entering the season, a team that beat Duke, right? Like, they just haven't looked the same. And they've been underwhelming. And the thing about it, Cart, is that the Utah trip was especially ugly. I mean, they got waxed, and it looked as if they didn't even like playing with each other. There was no cohesion. I don't know if there's 100% cohesion. They got on the right track against Arizona, sure, but it's because they got some vintage performances, right? Like DeJuan Harris had 9 and 9. Hunter Dickinson had like 34 points on super efficient shooting. Even KJ Adams was doing really well. So where am I at with Kansas, you ask? I don't think they're a Final Four threat. I don't think they're an Elite Eight threat or anything like that, but they're not terrible. What they remind me of, Cart, is the team. I think there's two versions of Kansas. Maybe I'm mixing them up, but there was one for sure that I remember that got smacked by USC and Evan Mobley. And I was convinced that team was going to go to the Final Four. It may have been Christian Brown's freshman
I
season.
think I think it was, yeah.
They were not that good. They were disjointed. It actually reminded me a lot of what they're doing this year. And I was like, you know what? It's Kansas. They can find that extra gear. They're talented, and they never did. And they got bludgeoned in the tournament.
Was
I
that the
think
was
that
that the like when the was that the like the COVID tournament when the stadium was empty? Or
it
am
might
I
have been.
mistaken on that?
It might have been. How many years has Evan Mobley been in the league now? Three,
Three or
four?
four, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all this to say, I'm being long winded. I apologize.
Oh,
I'm somewhere in the middle. Like
never
Kansas,
apologize.
Kansas doesn't move me all that much.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think that a lot of this stems from the fact that Kansas was the preseason number one team. And I mean, they're still top 25 metrically. They've been in and out of the top AP top 25. They had some good wins. They've had some bad losses. Like you point out, that Utah trip in general was just a disaster in all forms. Whatever happened on the court was terrible. Bill Self straight up said this team doesn't like each other right now. They need to separate from themselves. Not something you want to hear from a basketball team that has to play together. But at the end of the one thing that will never let me go away with this Kansas team is that they still have, one thing that can solve like kind of maybe some heads butting is when your star players just star. And Hunter Dickinson is one of the best bigs in the country. And Zeke Mayo is one of the best guards in the country, in my opinion. I think that he has the turnover issues, he has inconsistencies, but Zeke Mayo has been really, really good at times this year. Honestly, a lot of those times are at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. He's been very shaky. His road and home splits are like night and day. But if he can somehow even find the middle of what he does at home, he's just a really special player. And we saw the Kansas UCF matchup earlier in the season, and UCF was they were pushing this team on the road. Like they win the Fog Allen, and they brought the smoke to him. Keyshawn Allen was really good. Tem really he held his own as the front court. Where are you at with this UCF team? Because sometimes they hoop like a fun AAU team, but like it works at times.
Yeah, so I will. I'd be remiss if I didn't say, Cart, that they played twice this season, and you're absolutely right about the last time out in Lawrence. Go ahead and look up what happened in Orlando, though, because
Oh man,
Kansas won 99 to
I
48.
forgot. I really totally put that one completely out of my memory. I forget because that was coming. I think that
I
was
just want to be fair to
they lost.
Kansas.
They lost to West Virginia at home, and
Mm.
stuff wasn't. And there was a lot of chatter about stuff not going well. And then they won by 50 on the road. And I was like, "Yay, Kansas!"
I just want to make sure I'm being 100% fair to Kansas, right? Like,
Sure.
I think the last two matchups are actually hilarious between these two teams. But as it relates to UCF, yeah, I mean, they're a fun basketball team to watch, but they might be the definition card of a team that got hot against an relatively inferior opponent in Utah, and now the road comes to an end here against Kansas in Kansas City. It's a tall task for Johnny Dawkins' squad. And while I may not think, first of all, I do reserve the right to change my mind about Kansas because
Mhm.
if they win the Big 12 title, like that that changes things about how I view them in my bracket. I don't think they're going to do that, but I do think they're going to have the advantage in this game. I do think Zeke Mayo has gotten off the schneid, which is a huge deal, right? Like I think a lot of with shooters, a lot of it is in between the ears. I don't want to speculate, but Zeke Mayo's shown all the talent. We know he can shoot. We know he can perform.
Yeah.
I think that last game out really helped him. Like I said, we got a lot of vintage performances. But what I will say for the Knights, they found something from distance, and Jordan Ivy Curry is going to be a spark for them off of the bench. So I actually think this is going to be a game that might be a little touch and go in the beginning, and then Kansas slowly, methodically separates. But UCF, they're a little bit of a threat. And you know what? You mentioned a team like in one of our recaps, TCU, right? Like they thought they could just show up and win. Um, Kansas is one of those teams that can get away with that. I wouldn't advise it though in this one, man. Like based on how your season's been going, I would make sure you bring your hard hat for this game.
Yeah, and look, UCF is one of the teams that I think the matchups, though they were funny, the results and like something of note. I think it's kind of points to what UCF is. They're a little feast or famine. They play extremely fast. They try to get shots up. They throw like a little. I don't even know what the zone is. It looks like a 1-3-1 at sometimes. Then they throw some 2-3. Then they throw like some run and jump. They're really just out there just flying around sometimes and trying to get the ball back to get on offense. But the thing is about it is Kansas is still a top 10 team defensively, right? And the end that they struggle on has been offense, and UCF doesn't really provide that much defensive resistance. Like I said, it's a little bit of a junky zone. They're not really good at defending from 2-point range, solid from three, but I think that Kansas, even if you have questions about their offense, I think they should be able to have their way in this one. And honestly, I don't think UCF's going to score in this game. I think this could be one that gets out of hand, and UCF tries to do too much, plays too fast, maybe turns the ball over. And as much as that first game was impressive, the win they had over Utah, it's still Kansas at its heart of hearts. Is there any chance of a Keyshawn Hall legacy game?
No, I don't think there is because, like you said, Kansas is too dang good defensively. I think they shut the water off. And at the end of the day, Cart, sometimes you do just have to look at it and you're like, do you see Kansas going one and done? Like I know they've been underwhelming, but do you see them going one and done in their home tournament?
I wish I could pull this up. I usually lean on Greg for this stuff. I would love to know the last time they lost the first game in the Big 12 tournament. I would actually bet it's never happened, to be honest with you. I believe
I'd
that.
be willing to bet that too.
Yeah. So I guess that gets us to our portion. I was gonna go down UCS roster and ask every single guy if this guy could have a legacy game.
Hey, maybe not a legacy game, but if you're a Knights fan, which I can't, maybe there are, I don't know. I'm sorry, no disrespect, but if you're a Knights fan, watch out for Chom in this game. I want to see how he does against elite veteran like Hunter Dickinson. That could be a glimpse into the future for you guys.
Yeah, he was good at that game at Fog Allen. He was really good. He was like
He's a good player.
yeah. I honestly I saw like a couple UCF games this year, and he had like flashes. And I was like, that dude is good. First of all, that dude's a freshman. He's 7'2", and he just pulled up to the Big 12, and he's averaging 10 and 6 and almost 3 blocks a game.
Yep.
Crazy, crazy. They got something special there. Hopefully they, retain them. I hate the transfer portal era. That's my first thought as always. Let's get to the prediction of this game. Ken Palm has this as a 9-point game, a 9-point Kansas victory, 82-73. Subi, which way are you going in this one?
That's pretty high scoring, Mr. Pomeroy. I'm going to go Kansas 72-58.
50. See, that's the way it kind of looks to me. I think they'll get to that 80 mark, but I think that as I say this, it's going to happen. I don't see UCF breaking 60. So I'll go 80 to 59. I think that Kansas wins it pretty handily and starts their Big 12 tournament. Maybe sends a message that the Big 12 is still Kansas and Bill Self is still Bill Self. We'll, got to get past the first one to do that. But we'll have the recap of that game here on Sleepers Media YouTube channel. We'll have previews and recaps for every Big 12 tournament game here on the channel. So be sure to, get your information on the Big 12 tournament. We got you covered over here. But check back on for the recap after this game. We will catch y'all next time.